Okay, sixth grade. So this time I'm not going to stop at all to point out any annotations. You should just be pausing the video. Whenever you see a super cute puppy, you should annotate and then unpause when you're ready to continue. He shook his head to drive the picture out and moved down to the shore. There was a tree there with long branches that seemed straight, and when he pulled on one of them and let it go, it had an almost vicious snap to it. He picked one of the limbs that seemed right and began chopping where the limb joined the tree. The wood was so hard and he didn't want to cause it to split, so he took his time, took small chips, and concentrated so hard that at first he didn't hear it. A persistent whine, like the insects, only more steady with an edge of a roar to it, was in his ears, and he chopped and cut and was thinking of a bow, how he could make a bow, how it would be when he shaped it with the hatchet, and still the sound did not cut through until the limb was nearly off the tree, and the whine was inside his head, and he knew it then. So let's see, what is he hearing right now? A plane! It was a motor, far off but seeming to get louder. They were coming for him. He threw down the limb in his spear, and holding the hatchet, he started to run for camp. He had to get fire up from the bluff and signal them, get fire and smoke up. He put all of his life into his legs, jumped logs, moved through the brush like a light ghost, swiveling and running, his legs filling and blowing, and now the sound was closer, coming in his direction. So right now what we're seeing as a plane fly overhead. So Brian is getting a lot of hope. He's thinking there's a plane flying above. I have to get my smoke signal up so maybe they can see me. I think it's the searcher people coming for me. If not right at him, at least closer. He could see it all in his mind now, the picture, the way it would be. He would get the fire going, the plane would see the smoke and circle once and then again and waggle its wings. It would be a float plane, and it would land on the water and come across the lake, and the pilot would be amazed that he was alive after all these days. All this he saw in his head as he ran for the camp and the fire. They would take him from here, and this very night, he would sit with his father and eat and tell him all of these things. He could see it now. Oh yes, as he ran to the sun, his legs were liquid springs. He got to the camp, still hearing the whine of the engine, and one stick of wood still had a good flame. He dove inside and grabbed the wood and ran around the edge of the ridge, scrambled up like a cat and blew and nearly had the flame feeding, growing when the sound moved away. It was abrupt, as if the plane had turned. He shielded the sun from his eyes and tried to see it, tried to make the plane become real in his eyes. But the trees were so high, so thick, and now the sound was still fainter. It means it's fading away. So we saw him get all this hope as it flew overhead, running to make a smoke signal, even getting so hopeful that he could imagine himself sitting down with his dad that night, talking about how it had all saved. But now the sound of the plane was growing fainter. Let's keep reading. He kneeled again to the flames and blew and added grass and chips, and the flames fed and grew, and in moments he had a bonfire as high as his head. But the sound was gone now. Look back, he thought. Look back and see the smoke now and turn. Please turn. Look back, he whispers. This is him kind of talking to the people driving the plane, right? Look back. Feeling all the pictures fade. Seeing his father's face fade like the sound, like lost dreams, like an end to hope. Oh, turn now and come back. Look back and see the smoke and turn for me. But it kept moving away until he could not hear it even in his imagination and his soul. Gone. He stood on the bluff over the lake, his face cooking in the roaring bonfire, watching the clouds of ash and smoke going out into the sky, and thought, no. More than thought. He knew then that he would not get out of this place. Not now, not ever. So right here what we see is Brian losing so much hope. We saw him so hopeful as he was running to that plane, and now he says he knew he'll never get out of this place. That had been a search plane. He was sure of it. That must have been them, and they had come as far off to the side of the flight plan as they thought they would have come, as they thought they would have to come, and then turned back. They did not see his smoke. They did not hear the cry from his mind. They would not return. He would never leave now, never get out of here. He went down to his knees and felt the tears start, cutting through the smoke and ash on his face, silently falling onto the stone. Make sure that you have annotated everything there is to annotate. Your paper should look crazy marked up. I bet you found so many puppies in here. Remember, this is a very sad point of Brian. There's a lot of point of view in here, so I want to see those eyeballs all over your paper, especially with little notes to it too. When you're done, take out your independent reading book.